We all have stories to share, experiences that shaped us, moments in life that formed who we are and what is important to us. But not many of us actually take the time to share these stories. Maybe because we don't consider ourselves writers, or maybe that our experiences aren't worth writing about. But Charlotte Andersen is a perfect example of just how untrue that is. A stay-at-home mom with degrees in education and computer information systems, Charlotte's path to becoming a prolific writer was not exactly a traditional one. First starting a blog that would later turn into a book, and ultimately a career as an author, Charlotte is creating a life that allows her to do what she loves and live a lifestyle that she designed. Through sharing her story of the great fitness experiment, Charlotte honed the craft of writing. This year of trying everything taught her how to share her experience and connect with the readers. She was so good at sharing her story that she soon started helping others share theirs. And that's where Charlotte found her true passion. Now a regular contributor for several magazines like Reader's Digest, O, Women's Health, and many others, Charlotte has mastered the art of sharing stories. Hear how she did and where she's headed in my recent conversation with Charlotte Andersen.
I'm psyched. Let's do it.
I am. I'm actually really excited, but I'm real nervous at the same time too. So.
Why are you nervous? Tell me why you're nervous.
I'm nervous because of all this video equipment, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at the video and it was, it's hard to look at yourself anyway, but then when you see like stuff like that, you just pick it apart. But anyway.
See, what I can't stand is my voice on camera because my voice sounds much deeper in my head, and then when I hear myself recorded, I sound really light and breathy, and I was like, who is that person?
Right. No, it
Talk
took
like
me
a normal person.
months to get over the whole talking issue, like the way that I speak too, especially. Yeah, you never sound like you think you do.
Well, I don't ever listen to myself.
And I've never been blessed. Like it drives me crazy because like my parents can sing. I've got 3 sisters. They're all beautiful singers. Me and Tyler, worthless. We can't carry a tune in a bucket. I mean, it's horrible, but it is what it is. So anyway, thanks for coming. This is the Extraordinary Podcast, and my guest today is Charlotte Andersen.
Hey, I'm excited to be here.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us where we're at.
We are in Arvada, Colorado, which is where I live, and you are visiting.
Yes, we came out to get together with you and a few other people, and really excited to get to talk to you. Been reading some of your blogs and stuff, and although they are geared towards the ladies and everything, I've found them very rewarding and very entertaining. The wit is awesome.
Thank you.
It's great. So let's backtrack into the book. Maybe start there, because that's kind of maybe a good jumping off point.
Yeah, so my book is called The Great Fitness Experiment, 1 Year of Trying Everything, which was also the same name of my blog. My blog ran for about 8 years, but I stopped writing it in 2013. But so the way I got into it was I actually have a degree in computer information systems and another degree in education. So this is not my wheelhouse at all.
No.
But after I had my 4th child, I have 5 kids. After my 4th kid, I had really severe postpartum depression and anxiety. And so I got into fitness as a way to kind of help my mental health. And I just didn't know anything about it. So I was like, I'm a researcher at heart. I've done a lot of research. So I'm just going to read all the studies and do everything and try it all out and experiment on myself. So I ended up doing it. I wanted to do it just for a year and ended up doing it for 8 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so I tried literally everything, every diet, every workout. And then I wrote my book, and it's before my daughter was born. 2008, I think, is when the book came out. And then since then, I have transitioned totally to professional writing. I write for magazines.
Some of those are Shape,
O Magazine.
We got to run down that list.
Women's
It's pretty
Health,
extensive.
Red Book, Fitness, What to Expect When You're Expecting. Basically, if there's a magazine in the health and fitness industry, I've written for them.
That's fantastic.
Reader's Digest, I write a lot for them these days.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, I've ghostwritten a couple of books for celebrities. I cannot tell you who they are, but I can tell you about the books and the process and stuff.
And what the other thing that I found so interesting with some of your blogs was the fact that you're able to write on behalf of someone who's had a really transformational experience, like someone who's gone through an extensive weight loss or something like that, and you then take their story and share it with everyone. Tell me about that process and what that's like.
That's actually my favorite kind of writing. It's called As Told Tos. And
As
so,
Told
like,
Tos.
the byline would read, Nathan as told to Charlotte Andersen. And basically, I spend a day with you. You tell me your whole story, and then I write it up, and we kind of go through it together and make sure it's how you want it. But I love it so much. I love being able to interview really interesting people and help them get their story out there in a way that maybe they couldn't do on their own. So recently I interviewed the U.S. Surgeon General. His name is Jerome Adams, and his wife, Lacey, and their adorable kids. And it was so much fun, and we just got to chat. And I was able to help them write. Lacey went through melanoma, so I was able to help her write her story. And, and a lot of fun things have come out of that. And I loved, meeting their family, and they're amazing. So that's
and what
my
a beautiful
favorite,
to share that experience.
Favorite stuff to do.
That's great. How did you get into that? How did that all start?
So I don't, all I can say is like the hand of God. There's no rhyme or reason to my career, which is why I always feel bad. I always have high school kids email me and say, tell me how to get your job.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't even know how I got my job.
Isn't that funny how that works?
I have no advice for you.
Right.
I really kind of fell into it. I feel very lucky and very blessed. It mostly came through my book. After I wrote my book, I was contacted by a friend who had also written a book, who was an editor, to see if I would write for the magazine that she worked for, and it just sort of snowballed from there. So now I've been doing health and fitness writing professionally for, let's see, how old is Micah? I gauge everything by the years of my children.
That's the best way to do it, because you can remember the dates. I did the same thing.
So I want to say 13 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. That's
Yeah.
great. What's one of your most memorable or favorite experiences sharing someone else's story?
Well, I loved the Surgeon General, but my favorite people to interview are people who are experts about something and they're really passionate about it. I probably shouldn't say this, but my least favorite people to interview are celebrities.
Nothing wrong with that. I actually have a rule.
It's kind of a logistical nightmare. Keep that rule.
No,
Yeah, so it's just a lot of background work and PR people and other stuff to deal with.
And quite frankly, not a lot of depth.
Yeah, and not a lot of honesty. And it's sometimes
and
not their fault.
agendas and everything else. Sure.
Yeah, I interviewed a really famous singer, and her PR rep came on the phone first and was like, you can't ask her about her workout, her diet, her children, her endorsements. Right. And I was like, this is literally the only thing we care about. Like, we're a fitness magazine. What am I like?
Right.
So
it can be challenging for sure. Well, and even just that's probably been the biggest challenge for me doing the podcast, is just coming up with unique and original guests and continually because you're always having to book that next guest. So you're always looking for those people. But thankfully for me, I've been blessed to have some really neat people like you that are willing to come hang out and share their experience. So I'm definitely grateful for that. And I love being able to share. I mean, that's the theme of the show: ordinary people living extraordinary lives.
And there are a lot of cool people out there.
A lot, and there's a lot of really neat stories that I feel like need to be told. And that's the goal. That's the goal of the show for sure.
So for several years, I just took a break from the blog and only focused on professional writing, which is what I've been doing for about the past 5 years. So mostly magazine writing, some book writing. But now I have my own podcast. I didn't know if you knew that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's called Self-Help Obsession.
Let's plug that right now. Self-Help Obsession.
Plug
I'm going to have
stuff.
to add it in there.
Yeah, so
I apologize for not
no worries.
knowing that going into it.
It's small.
That's
it's
fantastic.
Not a big thing, but it's I have a friend,
Aren't
Jill,
we all?
Yeah, who asked me
We've got to start somewhere, right?
I know. Who just wanted to chat about self-help books, which goes along with my theme of like trying out different experiments on myself.
That's great.
So we read a self-help book every week and talk about it, and it's fun. It's a good time.
Nice.
So if you guys
and Lord knows there's plenty of those books to go through. That'll keep you busy for a while.
Maybe we can review your book when you get it out.
Absolutely. That would be fantastic. Most definitely.
Yeah.
So that's cool that it's all within the same vein. That's great. That's fantastic.
It is. And I love the magazine writing that I do. I've been able to carve out a really great niche for myself, mostly doing the As Told Tos, those kind of stories.
Well, and this would the podcast could kind of be a little bit of a natural progression for that, because it then allows you to maybe even share some of those stories as guests as opposed to just writing for them.
Yeah.
You can actually share their story. They can actually share their story in person. That's great. So let's talk about this book. And since that's kind of is the theme for what you're now doing with the podcast, what was your favorite workout of all the ones that you tried. What was the one that appealed to you the most, or that you felt like had the most impact on you?
So I have to tell you, I really like the way you worded that question, because usually people that ask me about my book ask which workout is the best. And there's no right answer to that. Like, whatever workout you like is the best, and whichever workout you can stick to is the best workout for you. So
Whichever one you find fun.
and they all work. I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna get more fit from whatever workout you do. But I like that you asked me which one I liked the most, because that is hands down the circus workout. I
Really?
did, yeah, like trapeze, trampolines, aerial silks. Emily's laughing because I've made her do some of this stuff with me.
That's awesome.
I am just like a giant monkey at heart, and I think that stuff is so fun.
I have a dear good friend, Amanda. She was actually on the podcast as well, and she's a runner by trade or whatever, or that's her thing. But same thing. She loved all the trapeze stuff, all the silks and all that, and she just adores it. She just has so much fun with it. That's really neat. So that was your favorite one. What was the one that was the toughest for you to go through the whole month? Because you were doing a month at a time, right? Basically 30 days of each cycle. Which one was the toughest for you, you think?
Well, what I learned is that I really like pretty much every fitness program. I find things to enjoy about all of them.
Yeah.
The ones that were hard for me were the diet ones, because I did diet and exercise. And
I know about that.
I tried. I have a lot of readers that are super into the paleo/keto lifestyle, and I tried it 3 separate times for them because they just really wanted it to work for me, and I wanted it to work for me. But I'm kind of a mostly vegetarian, so
It's a complete
a
reversal.
high meat
Yeah.
lifestyle was not for me, and that I was so miserable. Super miserable.
Well, I don't think, I mean, same thing. I have some friends that do that and swear up and down by it. They do love it. And
Yeah, and
for
no,
guys in
nothing
particular,
against it. Nothing against
it
it.
really seems to work for a lot of guys really well. But
My
I just,
mom does
yeah,
keto. Mom, I love you.
Well, and I couldn't live without carbs. I'm
Yeah.
a bread guy, so yeah, as you can tell. But anyway,
Well, you do triathlons too, right? With your
I
family?
have been known. Yeah, we've dabbled.
Yeah,
in
so
some,
endurance athletes.
And quite frankly, that's what got me into doing it, was the fact that you could get away with eating a lot of the stuff that I love to eat, because I'm definitely a foodie at heart for sure. Tell me about one of your biggest failures.
So I talk a lot about my failures, both in my writing and in my personal life, and anyone who will listen to me. I feel like it's really important to be open about those, and especially the ones that are still messy, that don't have a great ending. So one of my personal things that has kind of haunted me for a long time is I've written 5 books total. One got published by a publishing house, and then they bought the rights to the second one, and then they went under. And so I can't publish that book.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so I would have to purchase the rights back from whoever bought out that publishing house, and my lawyer doesn't even know who it is. And anyway, it just turned into this huge mess, and I'm sad that didn't get published. But I've written a book since then about parenting. It's called "This Is Not a How-To Manual," and it's about all my failures as a parent.
Awesome.
And I have not published it yet, and I haven't even sought publishing for it because I'm afraid to put myself out there like that again. Having my book, the first one that came out, was a really positive experience, but it was so overwhelming to me. Being on
To
TV,
get through the process,
No.
or to promote it?
writing it was one of the easiest things I've ever done.
No kidding.
It was the promotion. It was going on a book tour and having to leave my children. It was going on TV all the time, which I got more comfortable with, but was really uncomfortable at the beginning. It was having to deal with PR people and marketing strategies and having to be sort of fake in a way that I don't like to be fake.
It kind of changed the game for you a little bit.
And it made me really gun shy. And so I've been sitting on this book for a long time. And one of my old readers just posted a picture of my book on Facebook and said, "I've been waiting for this sequel. And like, when are you coming out with it?" And I have the book, and I think that I need to publish it. And that
Definitely.
terrifies me. And it feels like a failure
Definitely.
that I haven't
Oh,
done it.
no.
And it's not a failure that's been resolved yet. There isn't
Yeah.
a happy ending yet.
Well, it sounds like there's a happy ending coming there.
I hope so.
That's interesting that you say that, because certainly for me, going through this experience has been the exact same sort of thing, because this is not my comfort zone traditionally. One of the things that, as I've been going through my little journey of forcing myself to put myself, am I even saying that? How do you say that? Forcing me to put myself out there.
Yeah. It's hard.
It is really hard, but I tell you, and I certainly haven't had to deal with any of the negative aspects of it like you've had to, but I tell you that when you do share that with people, for every one of those negative experiences, there are so many positive spinoffs from that you never even hear about. Like I've had it again with my friend Amanda that we were talking about earlier, where she was very open on Instagram and social media about some of the challenges that she's going through, and some of the inspirational messages that she's gotten back have really fed her to take on the challenges that she's needed and given her strength in a way that, she didn't really expect. So it's really cool to see how it works both ways. Like when you put yourself out there, you do kind of feel some exposure, but in the long run, I think a lot of that's healthy. A lot of that kind of comes full circle. So I'm excited for that. I really do hope that you bring that book to fruition, because that would sound like that's something that people need to read.
I don't know. And I do think it is more of a net positive. And I do want to point out that all of the emails that I get, and I still get really sweet emails from people, I keep all of those. I have a special folder on my computer for them, and sometimes I read through them.
Aren't those the best?
To remind myself why I do this. Yeah.
I have to have those, because if I did not have those in my life, I would have quit this a long time ago. I keep telling everybody, like, everybody, you see when you're talking about self-help, you got to persevere when everybody's telling you you're going to be a failure and you're not going to do it. Well, I've kind of got the opposite. Everybody's telling me, oh yeah, you're going to be good. You got this. You're going to. If I didn't have that, I would have just gave up. I just don't think I would have had the stick-to-itiveness to see it through. But clearly you've got a gift and you've inspired a lot of people. So I really hope that you see that through, because it definitely needs to be out there. Share it with the world.
Well, I said it out loud now, so that's progress.
Yeah. Well, now that it's out there on the podcast, the 3 people that are listening are going to hold you to it. So.
Sweet.
Tell me about a big win. What was one of your first big wins, or an experience where you kind of, an aha moment is what I like to think of them as, where you feel like, okay, yeah, I think I am on the right track. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. You said it was kind of a calling for you. Did you have any aha moments like that?
Well, most of my aha moments came during my career as a teacher.
Which was before writing.
Yeah, I was a college professor for 7 years. And my goal was always to get back to that.
And what were you teaching?
I taught computer science, and then in high school, I taught high school math and chemistry.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, which sounds smart and totally wasn't. I lit the lab on fire. That's good.
Good at faking it, right?
Yep. So I think my whole writing career has really been kind of a surprise to me, which is why I have a hard time like giving inspirational things about it, because I feel like I'm more being led than like pursuing it, which that sounds ungrateful when I say it out loud. You asked me what one of my aha moments was.
Aha moment.
And I think the closest thing that I have to that is, so this is kind of a silly one, but my mom called me the other day, and my mom is obsessed with her dog. And she was like, so I was reading this thing online about how you're supposed to train your dog and all these things you're supposed to say. And she's telling me these things. I was like, Mom, I wrote that article.
It was your article.
Yeah. And she was like, no, you didn't. And I was like, look at the byline, Mom, that's mine.
Oh,
and so that was kind of felt like a fun,
that is an aha moment.
When
Absolutely.
I'm out there enough that like people will Google and like get stuff that I wrote as an answer. That's fun for me. I enjoy that a lot.
Yeah, what a rewarding experience that would be.
Yeah, and I'm not the expert at all, but I interview lots of experts.
Well, but when you're continually putting good content out there, eventually it starts to gain some traction. And I think that's probably why you've had so much success with the magazines, is because as these editors and everybody are reading your work, I mean, clearly there's something that's hitting there that's drawing them in, for sure. And clearly the readers are finding inspiration in what you're doing. That's awesome.
Well, my mom likes my work. Yeah. So
that's what I always say. If I can make mom and dad happy, I'm doing something right?
There we go.
Yeah. So how do you enjoy spending your time when you're not writing and not dealing with kid stuff? Well, I know that's pretty much everything.
Yeah. Kid stuff and writing is pretty much my entire life. Yeah. So I have 5 kids, and my oldest died of a genetic disorder. And so we have 4 surviving kids, and taking care of them, they range in age from 9 to 17. So it's a very busy life. And then
That's a full-time job.
Well, and I write full-time. Yeah. I write at least 40 hours a week, which is a lot of work.
You fit in 40 hours a week of actual writing time.
Which is where the crazy in my eyes comes from.
Wow.
Yeah, so
that is impressive. Well, hold on. Let's just talk about that for a second, because I need to. That is a huge struggle for me, because we're both kind of in the same boat. Well, not exactly, but juggling the kids and the work balance. Mm-hmm. So, how are you getting in 40 hours a week in writing?
So I should clarify. I mean 40 hours of work. So that includes interviewing, research,
Yeah, sure.
writing,
Absolutely.
all of
Yeah,
that. It's not
absolutely.
just sitting
Yeah.
and typing. My hands would fall off if that were.
Right. Yeah.
Do you have carpal tunnel yet? 'Cause
No, because I'm not a very fast typer, to be perfectly honest with you.
it's coming for you.
But yeah, well, I do have some arthritis from the injuries and stuff. But yeah, that's another podcast episode entirely.
Maybe I should interview you because I write for an arthritis magazine, and I'm always looking for people that are not like.
Yeah, arthritis at a young age. I
Yeah,
got you covered.
absolutely.
Yeah, I could definitely cover that topic. It's called "Don't Break Stuff."
Good. We'll trade. We'll trade.
Yeah, well, I'll be on your show. That'd be
That'd be
awesome.
perfect.
Yeah, that'd be great. When do you find is your best time for writing?
All of those tips that you hear for writers typically, like have a firm schedule, block out this specific time. I don't do any of that. And I think it's because I'm super ADHD, like diagnosed, all of it. And so for me, it's better to kind of be spontaneous with it. And I write a lot in the morning and the evening when my kids are asleep, which is harder now
And when
that
you
some are
say
teenagers.
morning and evening, give me a time frame for those, what you consider to be morning and evening, because that varies for a lot of people.
Yeah, so like 4 to 6 a.m. is
Okay,
prime time for me
okay.
because that's 6 to 8 a.m. on the East Coast. So I do a lot of interviews then.
Oh, okay. I didn't think about that aspect of it.
Yeah,
Sure,
pretty
yeah.
much all journalists work on East Coast time.
Sure, that makes
No
sense.
matter where we
Now,
live.
I'm curious, do you find most people want to do interviews with you in the morning? Is that most when they prefer?
It's so
Or-
it varies so much.
Do you just but you just try to cater to what they
Yeah. If
wanna
they're doing
do.
me the favor of giving me the interview,
Yeah.
I try and work around what they need. And so I've done interviews at the zoo on a train. I've done interviews in the parking lot at the school. Way more interviews than I care to count in the parking lot at the school. I've done,
No kidding.
and some of these are
Because
Skype.
that's just like when you can flag them down kind of thing, or
Yep. Yeah.
and when you're doing these interviews, are you recording them or are you jotting down notes or
Both.
Because you're doing it from a journalist perspective, and I'm fascinated by that because doing it from a podcaster's perspective, it's a little bit of a different dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
So you're recording and you're taking notes as you go.
Yeah. So I record it a lot. Some of them are Skype. I'd say about 50-50 between Skype and phone calls.
Is Skype your preferred method of phone call interviews?
No, and here's why, because I have resting angry face. So when I'm thinking, I look pissed off all the time.
I think there's another name for that, but this
There
is a
is.
clean podcast, so we won't talk about that.
Yeah, so when I am interviewing people over Skype, it actually like is really stressful for me because I am taking notes and reminding myself over and over again, like, don't look mad. Don't look
have
mad.
that frown, that
Yeah,
furrowed brow.
because people are
Sure.
like, did I say something wrong? And I'm
Right.
like, no, you're great.
I'm just trying to concentrate.
Yes.
Yeah. That's an interesting perspective. I never really thought about that.
And also,
That's
I
good to
have
keep
no
in
good
mind.
backdrops in my house for Skype. So, like when I was interviewing the Surgeon General and his wife, I didn't realize that there's like this whole mountain of laundry behind me. And then once I realized it, I couldn't, like, I'm sitting in front of my bed, which I thought would be good because I had like a white blanket.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole mound of laundry on the bed until his wife pointed it out. And she was like, I like that you have laundry. Like, that makes it all feel more real. And
Makes
I was
it-
like, I'm so glad that you enjoy that because not
Now
everybody
I feel
thinks
like a
that this
complete
is
idiot.
so great.
Well, it's funny you say that because as I've been getting into this video stuff, there's all of that I never took into consideration. You never think about what's behind the person that you're talking to. You never think about what's in the foreground. I mean, there's so many different aspects of that to keep in mind. It's
Well, and this is a sweet setup. I mean, thank you, Emily. This is way nicer than you would have got at my house.
yeah. And full disclosure, we're at my brother's house, and him and his wife Emily were kind enough to host us for this, and we're grateful that they were letting us be in this lovely home that they have.
So another time that I write is late at night when the kids are in bed. So, I mean, I'm often up at midnight doing stuff. And I fit it in, like, I bring my laptop with me to the gym. So I will, like, jump on their Wi-Fi and do interviews in their cafe or right there. I'll take it with me to the grocery store. Like, if I'm waiting for a prescription, I'll pull it out and work. It's really scattered, but it works for me because I'm super ADD. So it doesn't work for everybody. And also the time pressure, like being under deadlines is so good for me.
Yeah, because it forces the issue.
It forces me to do it.
I'm glad you brought that up because that's actually because of this being kind of my own thing. There are no real outside imposed deadlines. So now I'm trying to self-impose as many deadlines like that as you can, because I'm the same way. Like you get into this, well, I can just do it tomorrow. There's no deadline. You can just keep putting it off. But once you have that.
And self-imposed deadlines do not work for me.
No.
Oh, I blow myself off so often.
Well, the only one that I've really been able to, and I've actually failed at it quite a few times, but the one that I've really stuck to is having the podcast released every week at the same time each week. And like every Sunday at midnight, gotta have one. And so that's helped push me to be consistent. But it's been tricky though. It's not easy. Do you find you're able to get into a flow state easier in the morning or in the evening?
So,
or does it just depend on what the situation is?
Part of my ADD, like I'm not the hyperactive type, I'm the inattentive type, and I will hyper-focus on things. So for me, it's actually not, the issue isn't getting into a flow state. I can get really deep into a flow state very quickly. The issue is like dealing with that in the rest of my life, because my kids will come and try and talk to me while I'm in this
you're in that
state,
right.
And it makes me like furious. So
sure,
because
you don't want to lose it, right? You want to keep that feeling.
Well, and I just don't want to be interrupted. I don't like answering the phone. I don't like going to the bathroom. I will go, 8 hours in a row without eating or going to the bathroom or drinking, because I'm just
in the groove,
in this state, and that's not necessarily healthy.
No, but I do understand it though, because I know I've interviewed several musicians, and a lot of them are the same way. Like they don't consider themselves songwriters. They just know that there's stuff that has to come out of them, and they have to get it out. And like it has to there's just something that's got to come out of them, and it's in that flow state where they're able to get it out. It's not something that they can help or control. It's something that they have to get out. Like they just have to getting something off your chest.
Yeah, that's actually a really good way to describe how writing feels for me.
That's interesting.
It just has
because
to
it's
come
not
out.
like that for a lot of people. It's certainly not like that for me. I wish it was, to be quite frank.
Maybe it's better that it's not. Mine's more like verbal diarrhea.
Right. Well, that's what I always call it, puking on a page.
Yeah, that's
what
I
like to do. But I do find that when I just get it out on the page, then I'm able to, I guess, compartmentalize a little bit and then move on to what the next thing is. But like you were saying, the biggest challenge, I think, for us as parents and people working from home is allocating those blocks of time where you're specifically focused on that and nothing else. Like allowing yourself to ignore the children while you're doing that, or allowing yourself to ignore that, even though you got a deadline, to do something with your kids and be engaged with them. Put it aside, and it's so hard, man. It just I have some good days and I have some bad days, but
so I have actually blocked out time in my schedule, not for writing, but for my children. So like the hour that after they come home from school is sacred.
Yeah,
I don't work, no matter how frustrating that feels to me. I don't do interviews during that time.
Shut it down.
Yep, and then the dinner hour. The time during dinner time, all phones have to go away. There's no electronics. I won't answer my phone. And then, homework time right after dinner is usually that way as well. But I've had to put that in my calendar. Cannot work during those times.
That's exactly what I do. Yeah, you actually literally block it out as if it were an appointment or an interview or anything else. And I have to do that, or else I don't take it serious.
Yeah,
you have to. So you say you write in the morning, and then you'd also get into some flow states in the evening. Would you consider yourself to be a night owl or an early bird?
Oh, night owl, 100%.
Really?
My children,
even with 5 kids, that's
my
impressive.
children have forced me to be a morning person.
Yeah.
And my husband, he's a morning person too.
Well, I think that's kind of the natural evolution of family life as you get into that morning state. But I'm always impressed with people that can get into that evening, that are still able to maintain that. Because, man, once 7 or 8 o'clock hits for me, I just run out of gas. I just have nothing left in the tank. I can't do anything.
Yeah, I get a second wind about 10 o'clock at night, and it drives my husband crazy.
Yeah, because he's ready to call it a night.
Yeah, he wants to go to bed, and I'm...
Yeah, and you're like, let's go. Well, we talked about the writing, but do you have any other morning or evening routines that you are pretty strict about?
Yeah, my workouts.
Tell me about that.
I still use fitness as a way to help my mental health. I'm also on medication. I'm really open about that. Better living through chemistry, whatever you want to call it.
You found the balance?
Yeah. My family tree is like a weeping willow. So
they all are.
Yeah, I'm on medication, but I also really need exercise every single day
I couldn't agree more.
Sane.
And
run for therapy. Good. So since doing all of my fitness experiments where I tried everything, I finally came to the conclusion that I'm done using fitness to punish myself. I will never eat a piece of cake and then say, now I have to run 3 miles to work it off. I'm finished with all of that mentality. Now exercise is something I do for joy and for fun and because it makes my body feel good.
Beautiful.
And that means that I'm not doing the most balanced workouts. It's okay with me because I'm old enough now that I can do what I want and I love it. So I dance 6 days a week. I do all different kinds of dancing and I'm not great at it, but it's very joyous for me and it makes me happy. And then I also lift weights because that makes me feel strong and tough. And
Yeah. Well, and that certainly helps in the dancing as well. Getting all that core stuff.
yeah, sometimes.
I would think.
And also 5 children, core.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So tell me about the dances. Tell me about the routine and the weekly schedule. Do you have a different one for each day of the week?
I do.
So you're literally doing 6 dances, six different days a week?
Yeah, 6 different types of dancing.
You're in the diet and health and fitness arena. So you've seen and you've read all these books, and you've seen some things that make a lot of sense, I'm sure, and probably a lot of things that you're thinking don't make a whole lot of sense and can be, quite frankly, dangerous. What's some of the worst advice that you've ever heard given to someone, to you or to someone else?
That's a whole other interview. I could talk for 5 hours about that.
In the realm of health and fitness.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I've actually written a bunch of articles on this. Like if you look on Reader's Digest, especially, I've written a whole bunch of articles and where I interview experts too about the worst advice that they've heard. And I think the short answer is there's a lot of bad advice out there.
Yeah.
A lot of people are putting stuff out there to make money, and they don't really care as much about the effect that it has on you. And I would say that a lot of those sort of celebrity-backed workouts and diet programs are from that camp. They're there to make money. That is their primary goal. It's not necessarily to help you get healthy. So a lot of bad advice comes from that perspective.
That's a great point, yeah.
But other than that, I think it's important to experiment on yourself and find what works for you. People are going to react differently to different diets, and really it's finding something that you like and you can stick with.
That's what I think it's all about. And I wrote a little bit about that, is just, finding what turns you on,
Yeah.
and then and if you find something that you like, then you, for your case, like dance, or I think of some guys, like it could be softball. If it's well, then you can cater a workout and a lifestyle and an exercise routine, and quite frankly, a nutrition plan that then supports that.
Right.
That then you're not eating healthy because I have to lose 20 pounds. I'm eating healthy because I want to be that better dancer. I'm eating healthy because I want to run those bases a little bit faster. I want to be able to have a little bit of a better swing. And when you can put some purpose behind that, I think it gives you a little bit more incentive, a little bit more gumption to kind of go after it a little bit. And that for me, that was why I did triathlon, because it gave you a very specific deadline goal that look, you got to put this work in before you get there, or you're just not going to make it. You're just going to quit, and you'll
just drown in the ocean.
Yeah, you're just going to drown. You're going to die. Hey,
You'll be the guy that they have to pick up in the boat at the end.
And you don't want to be that embarrassing guy that's, got the silver blanket over, whatever. But
which that has been me.
Oh, it's been me too.
It's been me before.
So you've got this podcast going. Who are some of the guests that you're fascinated with?
So we don't really interview guests, and
just focus on the books.
We read the book and talk about the book. And
you never have the authors on or anything like that?
One of the reasons that we don't is because I've learned from interviewing people that I feel like I can't be honest if I'm talking to the person themselves, because you want them to be comfortable. I'm not one of those, I don't like Howard Stern people that's going to surprise people with shocking questions or be upsetting or say mean things. But then I feel like I can't be honest. So if I want to give an honest assessment of the self-help books, which to be fair, I hate probably 90% of them. I'm I'm a negative first responder. I pretty much don't like everything.
But that's good though, to have the critical eye though, especially when there's so much out there.
Yeah, but I feel like I couldn't say that if we were interviewing the actual authors.
Right, because you're wanting to have a certain level of respectfulness with them, and when you're having an author on, you're really there to promote them and their book. And sometimes if you're doing a book review, you may not necessarily be
and I want to be able to say what I
exactly a positive spin, and you want to be honest with them. So you've talked about a lot of books that you don't like, that don't work in that field. What are some of the books that you do think are good in that field?
So my favorite, and it's not going to surprise you, but my favorite books in the self-help field are basically memoirs, people sharing the difficulties that they went through in their life and what worked for them. And it's
Makes
not
sense.
always prescriptive. It's not always them saying, do these 5 things
Right.
and you'll be like me. It's just saying, this is what I found that worked for me. And if you can take some inspiration from that, then that's great. So I love that kind of thing. And I have a whole list of those type of books. One that we read recently was by Manoush Zomorodi. She was a science and technology writer, I think, for the New York Times, and she has her own book and her own podcast, and I think she's just amazing. She's
I'm not familiar.
also
What's the name of her podcast?
her old podcast was called Note to Self,
Okay.
which I loved, and it was about integrating technology into your personal life.
Nice.
Yeah, and I should remember the name of her new podcast.
We'll dig it up and we'll plug it
Yeah.
on the intro.
Anyway,
or
so
on the-
I read her book and it's amazing, and I love those styles. She's a parent, so I feel like I could relate to her on that level.
Awesome. What was her experience?
So basically, she took out technology out of her life after her baby was born and then added it back in only meaningful ways. So kind of took it all out and then added it back in piece by piece to see what was useful for her and what wasn't. And it was just a fascinating process and inspired me to kind of take some stuff out.
We could always use to take a little bit more of that technology out of our lives from time to time. And that's a good way to reset. That's really interesting. What about just books in general? What are any books that made an impact on you, like at an earlier age? Any of the ones that stuck with you? What's a book that you've given away the most?
That is a really good question. My favorite book that I read this year was Hillbilly Elegy by J.D. Vance. I don't know if you've read that one.
I'm not familiar with that one either.
It's fantastic. It's a memoir, and I feel like it explains kind of a lot about the political climate in our country, but in a very gentle, introspective way.
Nice. Well,
Not-
that's a
not
good
combative.
approach compared to what we're used to
Yeah.
in the political arena right now.
It's not a political book. It's a memoir, but I feel like it has a lot of impact on what's happening now.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out.
And
That's
then
great.
my favorite book that I read growing up was Les Miserables by Victor Hugo.
Of course,
And I
that's
still
great,
cry. I've read it like 20 times. I cry every time I read it. The book I've given away the most is called Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis.
I'm familiar with C.S. Lewis, but I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, most people have not read that one, and it's my favorite. And it is just such a beautifully written, poignant book that has a lot to say about how we relate to other people.
Is that why it's the one you've given away the most?
Yeah, so I take a lot of inspiration from that too.
That's great. Awesome. Very cool. So who do you think would be good for this podcast?
You know what I would like to hear, and the podcast that I like to listen to the most, because I'm a podcast addict. I probably listen to 50 every week.
Awesome.
And the ones that I like to hear the most are people that have a really clear passion for something and a vision for what they're trying to accomplish. I don't like people that talk about talking about things.
Right, just the general
Yeah.
pop culture stuff kind of
Which
thing.
is why I was a little hesitant to do this interview at first, because I didn't want to be the person that, like talks about writing more than they write. I think the best writers are the ones that have interesting lives outside of it.
They're just writing.
Yeah, they're writing
Yeah.
because it's coming out of the joy of what they're doing in their life. So I love hearing people that I've never heard of before. Any everyday person that has a cool story to tell or something they're passionate about. Find the guy that, does 500 hula hoops. Find the lady that rescues chinchillas. I don't know. Any of those kind of cool stories. I love all of those really human, I guess we call them human interest stories. But
One of the guests I have coming up is a real good friend of mine. He just got into the Guinness Book of World Records for sticking 20,000 toothpicks in his beard.
see, I would listen to that.
It's
I
like,
think-
what a crazy, just awful. And he's just so happens he's a buddy of mine.
And you just have to know why,
Yeah, and
like-
now he did the straws, and he's done a couple of really neat, interesting things like that.
all
And
with,
so-
all with his beard.
Well, those were the only two with his beard. He got the 2 Guinness Book of World Records because of his beard, but his other feats have just been, just for fun and just doing. So does some YouTube stuff and
Yeah.
interesting things like that. But yeah, it's just an ordinary guy with a fascinating story to tell,
Yeah, or
and just
people
really
who-
engaging.
People who help other people. I
Yeah.
love hearing about people that go out of their way to do kind things for others.
Well, cool. Then this podcast will be right in your wheelhouse. Then that's excellent. Tell me about the future plans. You talked about your book a little bit, but what are you 10 years from now? What does an ideal everyday day look like for you?
So this is one of those self-help things that I can't get behind. I don't make goals. I know that
You
sounds
don't make goals.
insane. I don't make goals. And a
Okay.
lot of that, part of it is a personal failing because I live a life based out of fear. I think a lot about what I hope doesn't happen, maybe more than what I hope does happen. And that's something that I'm
Interesting.
working on. And I have a therapist. So,
So
But goals to me feel scary and they feel upsetting. Sitting down with a piece of paper and trying to write out my goals is upsetting to me. So I don't do it.
But do you ever think about like envision what you think your life might look like kind of thing? Do you ever do any of that?
When I do that, it's more like, here's what I hope doesn't happen in the future.
That's really interesting.
Like, I hope my kids are all safe and alive and
Right.
everybody's
breathing
and nobody
upright
has
and,
died in
yeah.
an underwater cave, because that is my
That's
personal
crazy.
terror is people dying in an underwater cave. And you think it doesn't happen
And you
that
live in
much.
Colorado.
I know, and you think it doesn't happen that much until you start listening for it, and then you hear those stories everywhere.
That is very interesting.
So if we get 10 years, and also I feel like keeping my expectations kind of low is more of an opportunity for joy and surprise.
That's very true.
I am very
Yeah.
pleasantly surprised by everything my kids do, because
That's
I don't
great.
expect, this sounds terrible, I don't expect a ton of them. Like when they were born and they came into this world, I looked at them and said, who are you, little person?
Yeah.
Like, do your
What are
thing.
you doing here?
Do your thing and show me what you're going to do. And I'm just going to be happy and
Well,
surprised by all of it.
what would you like to be doing when all the kids are growing out of the house? How would you like to spend your time? Free time.
I mean, it's a cliche. I would like to travel.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We'll see. I'm kind of
You ever
spontaneous
thought about
that way.
traveling with your kids?
Oh, yeah. If I had all the money in the world, that's what I would spend it on, is taking my kids fun places.
Doing travel and stuff like that. Where's the most interesting place you've taken them so far?
Well, we don't have any money right now, so we don't get to go on a lot of trips. But I think everywhere that we've gone together as a family, I have loved, and it's been
Yeah.
such a fun adventure.
The most memorable experiences for our kids, it seems like, or at least for us, going back in retrospect, were the trips that were the cheap ones. You know, the ones that were you went to the park and the state park and the thing and you camped out, and the trips that don't have a lot of impact and the things that don't have a lot of meaning were those really expensive ones, like going to Six Flags and spending all your money on roller coasters and stuff. A month from then, they're not talking about those roller coasters. But when you took them camping and they dug that fish out of the thing and they were playing with the worm in the mud, 6 months later, they're still talking about that experience. And I find that fascinating. And I love that you can share that experience with your kids and not have to spend a lot of money to do it.
Yeah, well, that's
think
good to
it's
hear, because my kids do a lot of camping.
I'm telling you, that will serve and where you guys live is exactly you're kind of spoiled in that arena. So
That's one
to
reason we moved
expose
here.
them to that kind of a lifestyle out here in this environment, man, I think that is something that is invaluable for our kids, and I think that's if you're doing that, you're winning. And like I said, the big fancy expensive trips, those don't seem to mean too much, but. What story would you like to be remembered for, or how would you like to be remembered?
I would love to be remembered for helping other people tell their stories. That brings me so much joy, and I get such happiness learning other people's stories and then helping them get them out
Share
into
it
the
with
world.
everybody. Yeah,
So if that's what I'm remembered for, that would be amazing.
that's great,
And,
because
you know,
that's very similar to me.
I think my kids will remember me as the person who talked about my grandmother's underwear at church.
Great.
But I'll take it. I'll take either
That's
way.
beautiful.
Yep.
That's exactly how it should be. Give me one bucket list item.
Oh, I would love to take my kids to Europe. That would be so
Yeah.
much fun.
For how long would you do that trip for?
Oh, I would love to take them for a whole summer.
Couple months.
Yeah,
Let
see
them really
the
get
whole thing.
saturated.
Yeah, I backpacked Europe
Yeah.
when I was younger, and
Oh,
that was
did
like
you?
one of the defining experiences of my life, and I would love to have that
Certainly,
experience
yeah.
with them.
Isn't it funny how we have those really unique experiences like that, and then as we get older, like one of my main things is like, how can I recreate that for my kids?
Yeah.
Like I want my kids to have that same feeling, that same experience. But that happens to me with coming up here to snowboard. It's like I've got to take my kids to have that Colorado experience and go do the snowboarding in the mountains and all that, because it was such a important and eventful thing for me, and it definitely made an impact on me. But I really appreciate you sharing some time with us, and I'm really excited about the book. I really hope
No, I hope I
keep
do
putting
it
yourself
too.
out there. I know
I
that
know.
you've had some negative experiences, and some of that can be really stressful. But
Well, and it's not just negative experiences from other people, it's from myself too. It's putting all that pressure on myself and feeling like I didn't live up to what I wanted to do with the first book. I never recommend people read my book. I don't tell people I wrote it. I don't advertise it. I don't recommend it to people. And it's because
and why is that?
I feel like it was written very poorly. It was very early in my writing career. It's not well written. I also feel like the way my editor put it together, they put the chapters not in chronological order. So it sounds actually through the course of the book like it got worse instead of better. And that has always driven me crazy.
Yeah.
So I would like to put a book out there that I'm really proud of.
Well, I hope you're not proud of that book, because I think that book is great, first of all, and I think you're being way too hard on yourself,
Well,
because I think you're I think that you inspired a lot of people with that book. I hate that you feel poorly about that, because I really think that was, I hope you view that as a very big accomplishment, because I certainly do, and I look up to you as seeing it's like, that's what I want to do. And so for what it's worth, you inspired me to want to get my stuff done. So
Well, good. If I inspire other people to tell their stories, my job is done.
yes, I appreciate that. Thanks for your time. It's great to meet you, and
Good to
looking
meet you
forward
too.
to all the things you have coming up.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Take care.
Bye.
Hey, y'all. Thanks for listening. So what'd you think? What did I miss? Anything that you wanted to hear that I didn't cover? What do you want to know more about? Who would you like to see on the show? Hit us up on social media and tell me what you think. Check us out on iTunes, and please leave a review. We're now on Patreon, and your support there helps let us know we're headed in the right direction. We have a lot of exciting new things coming, fascinating guests, and some of the craziest stories you won't believe. So stay in the loop and check out more great content by subscribing at our website, 8keystoGreat.com. Special thanks to my guests and all those of you living an extraordinary life. This is Nate G. We'll see you next week.